Okay, we instead of looking at the photosystem 1 in detail, we look at the photosystem 2 in detail first. The first step in the light reaction. So photosynthesis has two steps, light reaction and Kelvin cycle. But in the light reaction, we have photosystem 2 and photosystem 1. Let's look at photosystem 2 first. So photosystem 2 absorbs sunlight, and then what happens is that the light energy that absorbed by the photosystem 2, it will split the water molecule into oxygen, hydrogen ion, and electron. This high energy electron will be passed through the electron transport chain, as we mentioned before. The oxygen gas will be released from the stomata into the air, and the hydrogen ion will stay inside the thylakoid space. That means inside the poker chips. So remember, this is the the photosystem 2. It absorbs sunlight so that it gains enough energy to split water into three things: oxygen, hydrogen ion, and electron. An electron will go through the electron transport chain, oxygen will be released to the air, and hydrogen ion will stay in the thylakoid space. What happened when they go through? So the electron will go through the electron transport chain, and as it goes through the electron transport chain, similar to the electron transport chain in the cellular respiration, you will pump hydrogen ion from the stroma. Remember stroma. Stroma is the space inside the chloroplast. You pump the hydrogen ion from the stroma into the thylakoid space. Why does it need the high energy electron to do that? Because it is in the form of the facilitated active transport. Inside the thylakoid space, you have a high concentration of hydrogen ion. Outside the thylakoid space, that means in the stroma, you have a lower concentration of hydrogen ion. Because of that, it is against the concentration gradient, or up the concentration gradient. Because it is against or up the concentration gradient, it is an active transport. But because it requires a protein, then it is a facilitated active transport that requires energy. In this case, the energy is in the high energy electron. Then they keep on passing the high energy electron to the photosystem 1. Photosystem 1 will also absorb sunlight. When sunlight is being absorbed, it will re-energize the electron, because you see that the high energy electron originally coming from the photosystem 2, after it goes through the electron transport chain, it already used up all the energy. So in the photosystem 1, it absorbs sunlight and recharge or re-energize the electron so that it can go through the, it can work to make the NADPH. So the high energy electron, after that you will make NADPH, so that the NADPH can be used in the Kelvin cycle later. Yes, that's pretty much what it's about. And then, how do we make ATP? The making of ATP is very, very similar to the making of ATP in cellular respiration. Remember that we have a very high concentration of hydrogen ion in the thylakoid space, but we have a relatively low concentration of hydrogen ion in the stroma. Stroma is basically the space outside of inside the chloroplast, but outside of the thylakoid. So in this case, you establish a hydrogen ion concentration gradient, high inside but low outside. What will happen? They will have a tendency to want to go outside. But because hydrogen ion, they are charged, they cannot go through the phospholipid bilayer membrane of the thylakoid. They cannot go through the thylakoid membrane because thylakoid membrane, they're also made out of phospholipid bilayer. So they require a protein. The protein is called ATP synthase. As they go through the ATP synthase, it will give the ATP synthase an energy to make ATP. So it is very, very similar to the electron transport chain that we learned from cellular respiration. So that's it. The light reaction is very, it is like the electron transport chain we learned at the end of the cellular respiration. Now we go to Kelvin cycle. Kelvin cycle has actually three names. We're going to call it a Kelvin cycle. Some people call it dark reaction, or they call it carbon fixation. So three names, they are the same, they describe the same process. So the main idea is that it uses carbon dioxide from the air and reduce carbon dioxide from the air into glucose. The main purpose is to make sugar, glucose here. And the ATP and NADH, NADPH, ATP and NADPH from the light reaction provided energy for the Kelvin cycle to make glucose. So this box is good, I like it, because the input or the reactant is carbon dioxide. And then they said that NADPH and ATP, they are the energy provider. Output, we call it G3P. G3P is the precursor of sugar, glucose. But one Kelvin cycle only makes 1/3 of the G3P. So you need to have 3 Kelvin cycles to make one complete G3P. So this is a little bit tricky here. One Kelvin cycle only make 1/3 of the G3P. You need 3 Kelvin cycles to make one complete G3P, which is a precursor of glucose. Location takes place in the stroma of the chloroplast. That means Kelvin cycle occur outside of the thylakoid. And then it talks about Rubisco. Rubisco catalyze the first step in carbon fixation. RUBP to carbon dioxide producing PGA. So what happened is that you see when you have the carbon dioxide here, the input is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide will combine with RUBP, and then when they combine with RUBP, you will form PGA, 2 PGA molecule. And then 2 PGA molecule will go through 2 steps and become the G3P here. G3P is the sugar precursor. Let me simplify it here. Which one is better? This side or that side? This side, okay. Kelvin cycle. You start with the input is CO2 plus RUBP. And then you have this Rubisco as an enzyme to speed up the reaction to make 2 times. Let me see, 2 times of the PGA. And then PGA will go through 2 steps. 1 step, 2 steps. The first step requires ATP. The second step requires NADPH. And then they will make 1/3 of the G3P. And then after that, it will go back to the RUBP. So that's why we call it. That's why we call this Kelvin cycle. And G3P will eventually become glucose. So that is the short. This is the summary of the Kelvin cycle that I require you to know. You don't need to know too much of the details. That's everything I wanted to know about Kelvin cycle.